But this Ferrari 296 GTB makes 819 brake horsepower. The McLaren behind us, the 750S, that makes 740 brake horsepower. So in theory, we should be disappearing off into the distance, but as you can probably see, the McLaren's right there in our rear view mirror. Now weight has a big part to play in that. Ferrari quotes 1,470 kilos for this car. That's dry, without fluids, without a driver. McLaren quotes 1,277 kilos, so it's almost 200 kilos lighter than McLaren. And the reason for that is these cars take very different approaches to how they're built and the powertrains they use. So the Ferrari uses aluminium construction. It also takes a leap into the future with a 3-litre twin-turbo V6 plug-in hybrid powertrain. And that's key to this car's performance, but it's also key to its weight. But we know this car is brilliant. It makes 819 brake horsepower, 546 pound-foot of torque, get to 0 to 62 in 2.9 seconds. Go all the way on to 206 miles an hour, and all in a beautiful mid-engined rear-wheel drive Italian supercar. Now the McLaren takes quite a different path. It uses McLaren's carbon fibre monocoque, so a carbon fibre tub is the core of that car back there, and it uses a 4-litre twin-turbo V8, so more of an old-school sort of choice really. Still there, 4-litre twin-turbo V8, and that helps save that 200 kilos and, you know, puts it back in contention. So if I just run those figures through my head, that flips it back in the McLaren's favour actually. 579 brake horsepower per tonne for the McLaren versus 557 for the Ferrari, so that's game on. So you get none of that hybrid stuff with the McLaren, saves 200 kilos almost, and is the newer car in this test. So let's go and park the Ferrari up and see what the deal is with this new McLaren 750S. So if you're an existing 720S owner, you might be relieved to see how similar this car looks to its predecessor. If you're thinking of buying a 750S, then you might have hoped for a bit more visual differentiation. So what is going on here? Well, apparently this front bumper is new. These eye socket intake things here, they're a bit narrower. These alloy wheels, I think they look absolutely fantastic. These are standard across the range, and they're also 13.8 kilos lighter than before, so a huge difference in unsprung weight. At the back, we've got a larger rear spoiler. We've also apparently got a new rear bumper, a few bits of venting, bits and pieces like that, but fundamentally, this is a very similar design. So if you speak to the engineers, they'll tell you that 30% of parts are either new or changed for the 750S, and it's worth reiterating what a huge step forward this car was when it came out. It is a while ago now, in 2017, but it was a huge step forwards. And the engineers, they want to make this car lighter, more powerful, more thrilling to drive, more engaging to drive, which is hard enough, but they want to do that while preserving this car's comfort and its usability that marked it out from the start. So that's pretty easy to say, but it's a much harder thing to execute. So what is actually going on here?
The 750S evolves the 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 from the 720S, with power increased to 740 brake horsepower and 590 pound-foot of torque. That's up from 710 brake horsepower and 568 pound-foot of torque. It gets McLaren's triple-layer head gasket, pistons from the 765 Longtail, and a tried and tested method of adding more fuel and upping the boost pressure. There's also a new stainless steel exhaust inspired by the McLaren P1. The 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox has a new shift map, and there's the 15% shorter final drive ratio from the 765 Longtail. Springs are 3% softer at the front, 4% stiffer at the rear, plus the track is 6mm wider. There's revised geometry, and proactive chassis control with its hydraulically interlinked dampers is updated too.
Also got a new faster steering rack with a new electro-hydraulic pump. The brakes have also been revised with a new brake booster and vacuum pump, and our car is uprated with the Senna monoblock calipers and carbon ceramic discs. The idea really, again, is just to make this car more visceral to drive, so we've got a bit more downforce, 30 kilos less weight, but more visceral, more engaging to drive without affecting that daily usability. So let's see how successful they've been. The sitting here is a reminder of what a fantastic environment this is in this car. It's really kind of got a real kind of functional feel, not in a dreary way, but in a really kind of serious motorsport focused sort of way. Really nice Alcantara steering wheel. The seats sit you really nice and low down. So these are the optional ones, obviously, but your backside is really low to the ground, feet dead ahead. So the driving position is perfect. The visibility is absolutely perfect, and behind as well for reversing. But the difference is here, we've got some different interface for adjusting the powertrain and handling modes. And one difference you might notice is, if you've been in a 720S, the control panel used to be here for adjusting the dynamics. It was like trying to arm a nuclear warhead previously with a button to make it active and then go for the handling and powertrain. It's still on those kind of lines, but the interface is borrowed from the Artura on these pods at the back here. So McLaren wants to keep this steering wheel nice and pure, which I appreciate that, and I think this interface is better. They are hidden away behind here, but effectively we're pushing buttons here to on this side for the powertrain. So if I click it to the left, that goes up in aggressiveness, and then on this side is for the handling, and it's the opposite. So turn it right towards the center, and you go up in aggressiveness there. Now, the engineers I was speaking to were saying all the difference really in this car comes from sport mode. So let's put it into sport mode and see how this car feels. So first thing I noticed in this car after driving the 720S previously is the steering actually, and it's got more weight to it. So the springs are very slightly stiffer at the front. We've got a wider front track as well, and I think those things just combine to give this a bit of extra heft. Now, I don't think that actually does anything to improve things in this car. It's a bit of a take it or leave it, but the steering itself is still, this car's boosty. The steering itself is lovely, hydraulically assisted. Oh my God. It's hydraulically assisted, lovely tingle, a lot of feel, and a real McLaren trademark, and really keys you into what this car is doing. The other thing is the brake pedal. You notice I said they've been uprated. The pedal has got a cleaner feel to it than the 720S. It always was a bit soft previously, so that's very, very welcome. Still actually takes a little bit to modulate that once you push into it. It's not as bitey as I would like, but it's definitely better. Now, the interesting thing in the handling mode in sport, which is where all the difference comes from in this chassis, is I think on this road I would sooner have it in the comfort setting. So that benefit of trading up to the 750S, I'm not sure I kind of want it that firm, so I'm going to take this out of sport and put it back into comfort. Now, the other difference is the powertrain, of course, in sport, and I think that is a really worthwhile difference on this car. So it gives the engine more, it gives it more kind of character, more volume as well, more than anything. Still has that kind of gruff, industrial McLaren sort of sound check, which I think has come to be a really important part of this car's character. The big thing though, I think, are the gear shifts in this car. They were maybe a little bit soft before. In this car. You can probably hear them really, especially on the downshift. Combined with that stiffer, kind of firmer brake pedal, does give this car a kind of a stronger sort of mechanical precision, and you just feel as you're braking and downshifting, it feels a lot more connected. We are on P0 Corsa tyres here. It's 10 degrees, so the surface is very slightly damp as well, so a bit marginal for these conditions really, and you need to get some temperature into them, and combined with the character of this engine, it's quite a boosty engine, or a very boosty engine, so there's not an awful lot going on below 3,000. Then it starts to boost, and then you're kind of, and then it sort of spikes. So it's a very dramatic sort of engine. It's very engaging. It's not very progressive. There's that lag, there's then the boost, and then there's a real kind of hit of power. And my God, it's a very, very fast, exciting car, but you do have to watch the way that boost kicks in with a grip at the back. Yeah, it's really quite traction limited, so you have to watch that. We've got the shorter final drive, a little bit of extra power as well, and you do feel the difference. You know, the 720S was already a pretty bonkers car, a very, very fast car, a car that already struggled for traction somewhat. So you know, once you get this turned on, you get this tyre switched on, it's much, much better, but just those first few corners, you definitely got to be on your toes. My God, this thing is vicious. Just went a little bit light over a crest there and just lights up the rear tyres like that. One thing that helps here is the variable drift control. So you can turn the ESC, the stability control, to dynamic and then decide how much you want to let the car slip before it intervenes. And if you put it in one of its most liberal settings, actually it's very, very effective and very confidence inspiring, and a nice tool to allow you to understand how this car works without having to take a big breath and turn everything off straight away. This is a hell of a lot of car for that Ferrari to beat. You know, the way, the body control, the way it soaks up this surface and breathes with it in comfort mode. It's a very, very complete car. The front end maybe doesn't key into the turns quite as well as I'd want, but honestly, it's a very, very high benchmark for the McLaren. Wow, that is really something for the Ferrari to beat. So just before we drive the Ferrari, quick refresher on this car. It came out in 2022 and it's the first use of this new 3-litre twin-turbo V6 engine. So 120-degree V, so nice and low down. Turbos are mounted hot between that V as well, so in the middle of that V. And we've got an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission back there. And integrated within that, we've got the E-motor for extra power and a 7.4 kilowatt-hour battery nestled down here at the back somewhere.
Behind the V6 there's a dual clutch gearbox with 8 gear ratios as well as an axial flux E-motor, while there's a 7.4 kilowatt-hour battery behind the passenger compartment. The engine makes 654 brake horsepower with another 164 from the E-motor. Add all that together and you get 819 brake horsepower and 546 pound-foot of torque. That's pretty much identical to the V12 in the 812 Competizione. Plus you can drive on nothing but electricity at up to 80 miles an hour and for 16 miles at a time. The wheelbase is 50mm shorter than the F8 Tributo for extra agility, and this one's got the Assetto Fiorano package, an option with uprated springs and non-adjustable dampers, plus a few lightweight extras including a polycarbonate engine cover and carbon fibre interior door casings. It reduces weight by over 12 kilos.
Now the version of the Assetto Fiorano pack we've got is the extended version. That's £25,920, but that is just the tip of the iceberg here. So these forged 20-inch alloy wheels are £4,608, painting them baby blue £2,400, and it's £960 for these titanium wheel nuts. Aluminium brake calipers, £1,296. Adaptive lights, £1,920. £1,574. Carbon fibre intake cover, £3,072. Engine cover in carbon, £4,512. Rear diffuser in carbon, £6,720. Carbon fibre air diffuser, £3,072. Black ceramic exhaust pipes, £960. Fibre under door cover, £4,896. £1,056. Lex and door glass, £2,880. Racing stripe, a humongous £14,400. Now add it all together and those exterior options come to £80,246, and that is the price of a new BMW M3. Carbon race seats, £5,760, 4-point harnesses, £2,688. Coloured Alcantara details, carbon car key, carbon instrument cluster, carbon fibre tunnel trim, carbon trunk upper zone, leather Alcantara floor mats, carbon dash inserts, prancing horse headrests, advanced front driving camera, carbon steering wheel with LEDs, racing seat lifter, whatever that means, colour on request leather headliner, and finally the surround view. The total cost for all interior options is £37,361. So the price of £241,560 goes up to £359,227 with options. I suppose you want to know all the McLaren options as well. Baby blue paint, that is £8,200. The bonnet, that is carbon fibre, painted, £7,100. Front wings with louvers, painted, rear bumper in body colour with a carbon fibre lower. Headlights around with these gloss finish carbon fibre intakes. Exterior details, carbon fibre pack. Underbody carbon fibre pack. Upper structure carbon fibre pack. Active rear spoiler in a gloss finish. The track brake upgrade, brake calipers in orange. Titanium locking wheel nuts, £960. The front vehicle lift, £2,200. The total exterior options are £79,340. So we've got this whole performance interior upgrade, that's £6,900. Black Alcantara steering wheel, £520. Paddles and steering wheel details in satin carbon fibre, super lightweight carbon fibre racing seats, and finally 360-degree park assist. Total interior options, £20,420. Add it all together and it takes this car's price from $243,500 to $343,260. So immediately, this is a very different environment to the McLaren. This steering wheel is absolutely covered in buttons. We've got our different drivetrain modes here between, full E mode, where you can waft around 80 miles an hour, up to 60 miles in E mode, all the way through to qualifying mode, where the battery is just fully deployed to give you the maximum performance possible. It also feels extremely different to drive. God, this thing is fast. This powertrain is incredible, actually. The way, there's some lag, a lot of lag in the McLaren makes it quite exciting, but it's also, it sort of lags and then boosts. This is always on, it's always ready, and even though it's a V6, it very much feels like an authentic Ferrari powertrain. Just pulls instantly, revs right out, so it's just the best of everything, really. You've got a naturally aspirated sort of response. You've got that turbo torque that's always kicking. You can hear the whistle from the turbos, and you've got the top end that's really sort of boosted and aggressive. It's absolutely fantastic. Brake pedal feels much firmer than the McLaren as well. Better kind of response in that. Very kind of instantaneous gear shifts, everything snappy. And this steering, very different. It's more of a synthetic feel than the McLaren, but it's faster, there's less kickback. It's a real kind of surgical precision here to this car. Ferrari's mid-engine V8s have always felt super agile, but this definitely takes it up a notch. As crazy as that feels, it's like those F16 video onboards, if you've ever seen those, and the fighter jet just pivots on its axis and twists around. That's what it feels like here. It's just biting at the front in a way the McLaren doesn't quite do, and it's playful and responsive and malleable in a way that the McLaren can't quite match. Yeah. In this wet, what have we got now? We've got wet weather. It's 11 degrees still, so yeah, it's definitely playtime in this thing. I think that one thing that's interesting as well versus the McLaren, Ferrari, when it's in CT off mode, is it does give you some slack. It does let you play with the car, but it still cuts in maybe earlier than I would like. I have it all off to play with it, and then in the wet, it's maybe a bit too much. So the McLaren actually is really impressive in how it allows you to kind of balance that need to play with the car a little bit more, that desire to play with the car a bit more, versus, keeping it in check. But the agility, the way this car just kind of pivots around you, and it grips, but when you want it to play, it's really playful as well. It is a really incredible package that unbelievably moves it on from those previous models like the 488 GTB and the F8 Tributo. Now we've got the Assetto Fiorano pack, as I mentioned before, and I've driven this car on this suspension setup before, so around the Peak District, and it often felt on smaller roads just a little bit too bumpy for me. It made me wonder if that was the right choice, but here on these roads, it's actually really, really good. It's a really nice blend. I really like it, and I think I'd be tempted actually now to spec this just as it is. I really don't feel the weight in this car, the extra weight versus the McLaren. I think that's incredibly impressive. And, you know, the idea that this isn't a Ferrari engine is just ridiculous. You know, it's so tuneful. And I really like, actually, that you've got that hybrid capability that you can just, when you're in traffic, we just turn it all the way off to pure electric mode now. Different display on the dash, and we can go back home, we can leave home in the morning without annoying people. And, you know, sitting in traffic, I find it quite tiresome just have a really loud engine going. So I think it adds to the experience, and it certainly adds performance. What an amazing car.
The Ferrari really does set a high bar for the McLaren 750S to clear, but this test shows just how evenly matched they are. The McLaren unbelievably moves the game on from the sublime 720S, particularly the absolute fury of its V8 performance, its more incisive gear shifts and improved brake feel. And it does all that while maintaining the surprisingly supple suspension, nimble handling balance and gorgeously delicate steering we've always loved. The 750S front end doesn't bite with quite the authority of the Ferrari, and the rear end can be a handful when the boost kicks hard. But there's real anger and engagement waiting to be exploited for those lucky enough to get the keys. Hard as it is to compute, the 296 takes a pronounced step over Ferrari's phenomenal V8 mid-engine models, from the zap of its plug-in hybrid powertrain to the reactivity and outright capability of its chassis. Drive it and you'd never guess it weighs almost 200 kilos more than the McLaren, and perhaps even more impressive is how it combines its thrilling driving dynamics with real usability and the feel-good factor of slipping through town emissions-free and burning significantly less fuel. The Ferrari 296 GTB doesn't monster the McLaren 750S, but it does narrowly beat it to the top spot in this test.